under Raja Red. Favourite as we see himself. Look at Peter Allen, he's got them in 2003. Oh! Class 3 leaders. Oh! Just got Hello everybody and welcome to beautiful Corio Bay, Geelong, Victoria for round 1 of the Club Marine Australian Offshore Powerboat Series. Conditions are magnificent. What a year this class has coming up. Everybody's pumped. There's been plenty of changes in the different categories, plenty of moves up into new categories. And let me tell you, the Commodore of the Australian Offshore Powerboat Club, Russell Everton, is pumped.
We're going to have a corker of a year. We've got an additional round this year. We're going to Hobart in a month's time, going to Mornington next weekend, but we're here at Geelong for an absolute bottler of a weekend. The clouds have blown over and the conditions are the best that we could ask for. So, look, we love coming to Geelong. It's just the best.
Defending champions of Class 1 from last year, Steve and Andrew Searle from the Acme Racing team have been very busy indeed. A brand spanking new boat for this year, as Steve Searle tells us.
We've managed to get the new boat together. We were really actually planning to bring it here for the second race, but we managed to pull it all together for the first race, and we'll be running it today just to break it all in.
The boat, as you said, brand new, still a lot of refinement to be made.
Yeah, it's a 2002 model Skater. It's been clocked at 163 mile an hour on Lake X. With lesser engines than we've got in it now, and we're expecting probably in the longer term 165, 170 out of it.
A big challenge this year for Tony Lowe and Simon Isherwood. They've come up from Class 2 to Class 1. They've bought a boat from Europe, and isn't it an absolute weapon? They spent a bag of money, they've got plenty of development to do on it. Not a lot of time on it so far, but it's going to be a weapon.
I mean, we've been in the boat for 15 minutes. That's been the sum total of our experience, but it feels very, very good, very stable. Our main deal for today is to finish. Our first thing was that it floated. Second, that we got up on the plane, and third, that I did over 100. So what happens this afternoon will happen, and we hope to finish.
The Michael Schumacher of the Club Marine Australian Powerboat Series is back. Yes, Bill Barry-Cotter and Peter Muddy McGrath are back with Maritimo Offshore for this year. Of course, they left and ran the World Championships last year where they finished a fine 4th. They're back this year to focus on the Australian Series, however.
We're going to try very hard for it this year, and there's a lot of new boats here and some stiff competition, so it's going to be a good year.
So let's take a look now at the specs for these amazing Class 1 boats. Minimum length is 12 metres to max to 15. Maximum engine displacement 16.4 litres. For a diesel, it's 32.8 litres. Minimum weight, 4,000 kilos. Wow, for diesel, it's 4,500 kilos. So, as you can see, some differences there. Class 2, well, a minimum length of 8.5, maximum length of 15. Maximum engine, 8.2 litres on fuel. On diesel, 16.4 litres. Minimum weight, 2,250 kilos, 500 kilos more for diesel. Plenty of stuff happening in Class 2, including a new competitor in Damien Polisi, who bought the ex-Rumbler boat, and now the Splits fiberglass entry is looking for a big year.
Damien, this is the old Rumbler racing boat that currently holds the Class 2 Australian Championship.
That's correct, yes. It's been purchased in November of last year. New sign writing, new owner driver, same original driver, Stuart Adams from Adams Roof Tiling and Rails. He is still driving the boat. He's a very good driver, and this is our first race together today. So we're really hoping to kick some butt again, just like John did last year.
Polisi's not the only new kid on the block either. We have Revitech Racing coming into Class 2. Jason Boyd and Andrew Rudd, and today they'll be carrying out onboard cameras. Great looking boat. They're hoping for a big year as well in their rookie season.
Yes, mate, first time here, but supposed to be in Class 3, but no boats in Class 3, so they've put us up to Class 2 for the first time, so see how we go. We're first race, so see how we go.
And moving up from Class 3 into Class 2 this year, the experienced combination of Mark Gilbert and Lee Trebaskus. If the colours look familiar, they should be. That's the old Smorgon boat of Simon Lowe and Tony Isherwood. They've spent a bunch to upgrade. They're looking for a big year.
Yeah, it is a big move. You know, 2 engines on the back of a 6-litre boat to come to a third one. That was double trouble before, and it's just getting worse with 3. So, yeah, it is a big move. But we can step up to the plate with our team. We know it and we believe it, so that's what we'll do.
He was a rookie last year, brought out a boat that was relatively unsponsored, and this year, CRS Investments getting right behind Chris Roche and Carl Wall, and doesn't that boat look fantastic? Brand new cockpit, Hollywood Roche, hoping for a big year ahead.
Yeah, we're hoping to do well, take the title this year. Working very hard for it, so we can move up to Class 1 next year.
Well, last year, in the second half of the season, you really came on, and on the Gold Coast, you had a win in your class on the last round. Really put you in good stead for this opening round at Geelong.
Yeah, it does. If we can do that again, we'll be laughing. We actually were hoping a couple of weeks ago to win every race. We had some problems with one of our engines last week, so we've got a fill-in. We'll get that back on next week. I'm sure we'll do extremely well.
Well, you know, the Craven family are very big in the offshore championship side of things. This is Nigel and Douglas in Eye of the Tiger in the National A class. But moving up, the defending champs from last year in Class 3 4-litre into the 2s, it's Colin Craven and Bruce Sanders. And it's fair to say, Colin's Craven a big year ahead.
Colin Craven, a big move?
Yeah, it's a big move for us. We're looking forward to the challenge. It should be quite good. We're just hopeful to get some big bad weather through the season, and it'll suit us nicely.
Let's take a look right now at what Class 3 4-litre comprises of: a minimum length of 6.7 and a max of 9.2 metres. Engine displacement 4.1 litres for fuel. Diesel is 8.2 litres. Look at that, double capacity. Minimum weight is 1,000 kilo. The same applies to the diesel. Here's a bloke in the transport industry, mainly in the truck side of things, but very good on the water as well. Paul Gibbs and Paul Folds in Shifty. They spent a bunch as well. They're hoping for a big year ahead.
Yeah, looking forward, a bit nervous, but that happens at the start of every race, let alone every season, but should be good.
A lot of changes to the boat in the off-season?
We've altered the boat and put shorter trunks on, which has brought the power head height down, 125 mil, and got the weight a little bit further forward than we had last year, which will help our balance. We had a bit of balance problem at the start of the season, and we've done a lot of chopping and changing to assist that.
National A class specification sees a minimum length of 5.3 metres. No maximum length. That's cool. You can go as big as you want. Maximum engine 3.3 litres and minimum weight just over 600 kilos. Let me tell you, there's a war of words going on between Simon Thomas, Anthony DeFina in Thicon, and Slick, Craig Purton and Peter Allen. These guys are going at it already. We haven't even touched the water yet. Thicon, Simon Thomas. Remember them? They were Zoom last year. This year, they're Thicon.
This class is very competitive, and the boats traditionally are very reliable, so it's really going to come down to the wire.
It is. I guess you could say for this class, racing started at the start of this year with the verbal race. There's been a bit happening in the paddock.
Well, we've just put our toe in the water right now, but when we come back after the break, it's time to get the whole crop wet with these awesome Club Marine Australian Offshore Powerboat Championship drivers return. Welcome back, folks. It's time to line them up. Have a look at that for an awesome sight now as we welcome Nathan Prendergast to the coverage. This will be a beauty. Our onboard cameras will be the Revitec boys. Good luck, fellas. Their first attempt at offshore powerboat racing. We'll take a look at your grids now. Stephen Andrew Searle, Bill Barry Cotter and Muddy McGrath. Watch out for them. Gilbert and Travascus, Felici and Adam, Roche and Wall, Craven and Sanders, Boyd and Rudd in Class 2. Class 3 4-litre sees Stephen Matt Kelly, Beale and Jellick. Look at these fields. Everybody spent up big. Nathan, it's going to be an awesome year.
Yes, Wade, a huge field of boats that will only increase as the season progresses. We've got new rounds at Hobart and Tasmania. It's going to be a fantastic 2004 Club Marine Championship.
Here they go. Look out the distance. You can see the Searle brothers taking off. They're looking to defend their championship from last year as we go on board with the Revitec Racing entry on Boyd and Rudd. That's Ruddy closest to camera just there. These guys hoping for a big year ahead. Want to say a big thank you too to all the team from Stuart Webb's the Land Rover who are helping to get everybody around the country, the admin side of things. Man, look at this. What a great looking boat for this year.
Yes, and it's a brand new boat too out of America. Did do one race in Europe. It does look very similar to their boat they ran last year as we go on board with Maritimo Offshore. Speaking of Europe, these guys did some big things in the 2003 championship, including destroying one of their boats and having to purchase another one mid-season. They're doing the chasing at the moment, though. As I said, Andrew Searle, new boat. They still, Andrew and Steve Searle, rather, they still run the big block Chevrolet or Sterling engines as their power plants, whereas Bill Barry-Cotter and Peter Money McGrath run the diesels. They did run Lambos in Europe, but they've gone back to their trusty bus motors.
Searle, I suppose you're right, Searle had got away to a very good start, but there's a bit of confusion at the moment as to whether he's gone the right way. Now, the guy's got the whole shot most definitely, but there's some confusion of whether they've followed the right part of the course.
Yeah, Searle looks like the Searle brothers looks like they've missed a buoy, and you can see Maritimo have overtaken them, so they've lost a little bit of time there. Officials will be having a little bit of a look at that to see whether there'll be a penalty required, but now Bill Barry-Cotter and Peter McGrath out in front. Here is the ex-Tony Lowe and Simon Isherwood boat, now owned by Mark Gilbert. It is still a Class 2 boat, but now Global Racing.
Yeah, it hasn't changed a great deal in the colour scheme, Nathan, from the Lowe Isherwood colours from last year, but Gilbert Travascus back together again, got the three amigos belted onto the back. This will be a fast boat this year. It's a proven competitor, and I think Gilbert Travascus will do very well with it.
Yes, very successful boat, probably one of the most successful in the field. Even though it is one of the older boats, it's also one of the best in a lot of conditions, but especially the rough stuff, which you're obviously not getting here at Geelong. Back on board with the Revitec Racing, a new team. These guys looking to do fairly well.
We're talking earlier with Russell Embleton, and he was very excited about the conditions, said it's the best conditions that they've had for a long time here at Corio Bay. And of course this series kicks off down in Victoria, heads to Melbourne for the second round. The Revitec boat, beautifully turned out. It's one thing about this class, no one spares any expense with presenting their boat.
Yeah, fantastic looking boat, and I believe it's the ex-Mark Gilbert Class 3 6-litre winning boat from a number of years ago. These guys, although running in Class 3 6-litre trim, are actually running against the Class 2 boats in Class 2. So a big ask for them, especially in these conditions, Wade.
Have a look at Boyd. He's sitting there to the furthest away point of our camera view there. It looks like a Thunderbird. He's sitting right up there. He is strapped in and having some fun. The Smorgon steel boat of Lowe and Isherwood, very different colour scheme for this year. Blue and green should never be seen, they often say, but it's a striking looking paint job. It's not quite as leery as last year's model, but Lowe has spent a lot of money this year, got some good backing from Smorgon on board, and I think in weeks ahead this boat will really start to come into its own. Well, they purchased it from Europe, I understand.
Yes, Wade, actually from a team called Finscrew, and this boat is a little bit different to the others running in Class 1. It's actually aluminium, but you might recognise the cockpits on the top of the boat. It's actually the old mould and the old deck off the original Acme racing boat, which was originally from Dubai, and those F-16 cockpits now being grafted to the top of this aluminium boat and doing very well. But what's more remarkable is that they're even here. It only went in the water at 9 o'clock this morning. They only got here late last night, and it's a great effort for the team to even be here.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's hardly been an idyllic build-up, has it? Well, we tracked down this man, Tony Lowe. Ross Tanner grabbed him before the event, asked him more about this boat, more about his plans and all that good stuff. Let's get the lowdown with Tony Lowe, the Smorgon boat.
The Class 2 boat that you've campaigned for quite a few seasons, a triple outboard rig. Obviously this one has got the big petrol inboards and the Arneson drives.
The engines are Sterlings. They're built in the United States. They're basically a 500 cubic inch Chevrolet block with a lot of tricky gear. They develop 980 horsepower, 860 foot-pound of torque. I don't want to blow one up because my bank manager won't be very happy.
Difference in driving the outboard to the inboard, obviously a different feel for behind the wheel.
Completely different. This one's throttle response is awesome. In the short period we've had it, it's completely different. Where the outboard boat takes a little bit of time to get up and boogie, this one's right on the money, straight from the throttle. Throttle response is awesome.
Comes across as a really nice bloke, and have a look at this team. Man, it's a good-looking boat. It's Chris Hollywood Roche, that CRS Investments entry. I say Hollywood because everything about this guy seems to have a bit of class and a bit of flash about it. That's a fat-looking boat.
Yeah, he's a man following his dreams. He always wanted to do this as a kid, and when he was financially able to, he went out and bought a very nice boat, running in Class 2 and still running under the Victory Marine Racing banner, but obviously, as you can see with the CRS paint scheme, coming up past something fairly larger than what it is, and I trust you, this is a big boat. May not appear so from the helicopter,
but these Class 2 and Class 1 machines are very, very large boats.
That's one thing that people need to do with these things, Nathan. It really struck me the first time. I love the way the cockpit bends right around the side there. There's some mean, looks like it's out of Batman, this thing. You have to go and catch these boats before they put them in the water. You cannot believe the sheer size of them. And then you think the speed that they're travelling, and when you get a point of perspective like that where there's actually a ship in the background and they're blazing by, it is amazing. This is a great looking boat. Meanwhile, Shifty showed a lot of promise last year. The man is in the truck transport and equipment game. Paul Folds and Paul Gibbs. And here is Colonel Racing, Stephen Matt Kelly, battling along as well with Revitech, Boyd and Rudd. They're doing pretty well for their rookie initiation.
The difference between the boats we just saw, they're Class 3 4-litre boats. They've got smaller engines. The one on screen now, Revitech, is actually, although running under Class 3 6-litre specs, running in Class 2. Bigger engines, a lot quicker, a lot more horsepower. Obviously, they've got an additional 2 litres of engine capacity. You can see the chopper in the background, and these guys are really having to work it hard. You can see the throttle man there, on and off the gas.
There's the Eye of the Tiger, Nigel and Douglas Craven. These guys are back, aren't they? Great characters. If you remember, the guys from Eye of the Tiger were always waving at the cameras in the choppers. Yeah, I was really surprised at how much they really worked the throttle earlier on. Kind of surprised me a bit that there's that much movement.
Well, they obviously may have gone over the wake of another boat, because in these conditions it would be pretty much flat out. These conditions, although ideal for good speeds, are real boat killers because the engines are just at maximum revs the majority of the time, and they can really stress things out. The Splits Fiberglass, the ex-Rumbler racing machine from last year, still running Stuart Adam in the driver's seat, but is now owned by Polisi, who's doing a sensational job, and it's a beautiful looking boat.
Hasn't changed the colour scheme a great deal from what the Rumbler guys had with it last year, and I noticed he's retained Stuart Adam as well to stay with the operation. So that's a clever thing. If you're new to the game, you should keep someone who's been around a while and knows how to run these deals.
Well, Damien Polisi obviously wanted to be involved with this and bought a very good boat as well. This is also one of the boats that ran very well in the 2003 Club Marine Championship. Speaking of the championship, the Club Marine Series is heading to pretty much every state on the eastern seaboard, and for the first time including Tasmania, a race in Hobart, which will be fantastic. Here's the Australian champions, Acme Racing, Steve and Andrew Sill. Still the same power plants, however, a new boat weight.
Yeah, these guys are a wonderful combination too, that's for sure. What's interesting about it is Andrew Searle is a drag racer by nature, has a cool looking custom line. He's a long way from a quarter mile right now.
Yeah, but you're still talking big horsepower and trying to get that power, well, I was going to say to the ground, but in this case to the water. These guys have been, I guess the word is tinkering. They're constantly making changes to their boat, always wanting to evolve, and Andrew Searle and Steve Searle would really like to put Bill Barry Cotter in their wake this year. Of course, Bill Barry Cotter in the Maritimo machine theoretically has a little bit more top speed in this boat, and being a new boat and being its first competitive outing, they've got a bit of work to do.
The exciting part is that Bill Barry Cotter, I believe, has plans to bring back the boat that he campaigned in the World Championships later in the year, and it will be run by another team. So that's going to be exciting. They'll throw another boat into the mix, into Class 1. Dollar Bill, Barry Cotter, as the Acme boys talk with their tongue firmly in their cheeks. Speaking of the Searle boys, Steve and Andrew Searle, they are real characters in this game. We caught up with them earlier today.
The boat is absolutely magnificent. A lot of work, obviously, in preparing one of these Class 1 boats.
We've had about 9 or 10 people working on this for 2 months non-stop, almost around the clock. In fact, in the last 2 weeks, I think most of the team had less than 4 hours sleep a night. So it's been a big effort from them, and Andrew and I are very grateful for the effort the boys have put in.
Powering the 46-foot skater this year, you've got the big petrol motors.
Yeah, we did a bit of rule book finding last year and found out that we were overweight. So, you know, it's just an impossibility to get the boats down to those weights and make them strong as well. So I decided to up the cubic inches, so they're 550 cubic inches this year.
The drives on this boat are the largest that Mercruiser make, but tell us about the propellers.
Yeah, well, for the last couple of years we've been struggling with having a range of propellers. We've had 1 set, now we've got 4 sets. So it'll be certainly, it'll be good to try all those propellers and see which likes the boat better.
What sort of cost are we looking at for one of these Class 1 machines?
For the key cowper ones, they're looking at about $15,000 a pair, but the herrings, which are the world-class ones, are worth about $15,000 Australian each, and they last supposedly for about 4 hours.
4 hours out of a $15,000 propeller.
Yeah, that's right, and unfortunately you only know when your time's run out, when the blade comes off and you stop.
Yes, two words that don't spring to mind are cost effective. Man, these guys spend some money. This is a good little battle going on here, but it's a little bit deceiving because Tony Lowe and Simon Isherwood, just off to the left here of the Maritima offshore entry, are actually a lap down. Bill Barry Cotter and Muddy McGrath are a lap in front, but it's a good little battle that's raging nonetheless.
Yes, it'll be a good test bed for Tony Lowe and Simon Isherwood in the boat to see, you know, what it's like to run up against one of the fastest boats in the field, or theoretically the fastest boat in the field, and they seem to have a little bit of an edge at the moment. They're putting in around about 7-minute laps, which is top speeds of near on 130 miles an hour, so that is a sensational performance for that team first time out. There's the hands of Peter Muddy McGrath.
Casual he is, though.
Well, these are very good conditions. I mean, the boat does start to dance around, and this boat here actually has done 156 miles per hour at Corio Bay a couple of seasons ago, and when you get to speeds like that, it is fine adjustments you want to make on the steering wheel, because...
Oh, did you see in the background then, Lowe and Isherwood just went by, I think, one of the national A-class boats and just about ate it. They go either side of the tanker. How big's that?
But I guess that's what you call differing lines, obviously.
Jeez.
The Maritimo looking for a wider berth on the upcoming boys, and as I was saying, when these boats are running very well, there's about 95% of them out of the water. They're only racing with the final edge of the boat, and it's sometimes in the very, very good conditions, they actually skip from hull to hull, so there only ever really is one side of the boat in the water when they are really running strong. Here they come now towards the buoy. They're starting to close in.
Good speed from Smorgon Steel.
Well, does this signal things to come in the future? Lowe and Isherwood have only had 15 minutes of boat time with this thing. It has had very, very little time in the water, and here they are running up against Maritimo and seem to be outstripping them into the corner. They do run big block chevs, whereas the Maritimo boat has turbo diesels, but they both have similar drives and rudder systems, so they should corner fairly similar, but they're doing a great job, Wade.
Has Muddy McGrath got the best job in the world driving for Bill Barry Cotter? I would suggest so. He gets to drive, well, state-of-the-art machinery. This Maritimo offshore boat is magnificent. You can see that Lowe and Isherwood taking the big stick to them at the moment, but McGrath just tonking along.
Yeah, well, this is, like I said, a good test bed for Lowe and Isherwood to see how they can run up against this boat. This is not the boat that they competed in Europe. That was a different boat that they actually built before going over there. They suffered a horrendous crash in Austria in which the boat was completely destroyed. Mid-season, they were forced to purchase another boat from one of the Arab teams, put the Lamborghinis in it, and continue to compete with a different boat. That boat is rumoured to be coming back mid-season and possibly putting another team in it, as Wade mentioned before. So Class 1 looking to be very, very tough as the season progresses in Club Marine Championship.
There's a point of perspective finally. It's the tanker that's just off to the left. They blast by. It's so hard to get an idea of the speed of these things, but I can tell you now, Mr. Helicopter Man has got this thing wound up as fast as it will go, and these things are driving away. Look at the huge rooster tails of H2O as we go back on board with Bill Barry Cotter, Peter Muddy McGrath. This is a very big drive for these guys. At the moment, they've got the Class 1 lead. We haven't sighted the Searle boys. There's a great shot. The guys have got the chopper wound right up, and they're not going to catch these things.
That gives you a really good perspective of the speed. As I said, 156 mile an hour 2 seasons ago. That's 250 kilometres per hour. They're running around the 145, 150 mark here today in these conditions, so they certainly are honking. And now Maritimo starting to get serious with Smorgon Steel, just leaning on the throttles a bit and pulling away. Twin 1,350 horsepower diesels in this thing, twin turbocharged, single supercharged, and they are very, very strong engines.
Well, it's inevitable at this point that Maritimo, having a magnificent debut for 2004 in the Club Marine Australian Offshore Powerboat Championships, these guys are heading towards an inevitable victory as we have a look at Lowe and Isherwood, struggling just a little bit. There's more coming up after the break. Don't go away. It's going to be a great finish. Welcome back. You're watching our coverage of round 1 of the 2004 Club Marine Australian Offshore Powerboat Championships from Corio Bay near Geelong, Victoria. Big fields. That's Thicom just on board at the moment. That is the Zoom boat, rebranded for this year with Thomas and Davina at the controls. They're having a pretty good day so far. Good little well-publicised battle between he and Purton in slick. They tell me the boys have been talking the talk a bit.
Yeah, trying to rev things up between them. A little bit of inspiration always helps. As Wade said, this is the ex-Zoom boat, but the guys have gone away on the off-season, done a few modifications, a few repairs to the boat, and have come back and are running very, very strong indeed. These guys always did have the potential, but a few little niggling dramas saw them suffer a little bit in 2003. Here is Slick, driven by Craig Purton and Peter Allen doing the, well, I guess ballast is the right word for Peter, because in the National A class, he doesn't need to do the throttles. That is all done by the driver.
Sharing the experience, Nathan, is the way that I prefer to have a look at it. I've got to tell you,
I like to call it hanging on.
I would love to have a go with these guys. Well, not necessarily with these guys. I'd love to try something a bit more consolidated, like one of the big Class A or Class 2 boats, but it's got to be an awesome experience. Starting to chop up just a little bit for these guys here.
Well, these conditions are pretty much ideal. You do want a little bit of a chop. When it is dead flat and very smooth, the boats tend to suck or stick to the water. When there's a little bit of chop, they get a little bit of air under the boat, and the conditions are pretty good, I must say. However, for the National A boats, it may be starting to get a little bit rough. Mind you, you talk about the Class A boats and the Class 2 boats being obviously quicker. These things still doing 60 mile an hour with your head out in the breeze, you certainly know about it.
There's Colonel Racing. I always feel hungry when I see this boat. Magnificently turned out, backed, of course, by KFC, and this thing is having a pretty consistent day for the first round of the 2004 Offshore Australian Powerboat Championships. Club Marine once again this year getting right behind us, and there's a couple of different supporters this year that have come on board, which has been a very good thing.
Yes, of course, Cruise Pro Group supporting the start boat, which will be going to all of the rounds of the championship, which is fantastic to have a consistent starting boat that all of the teams and all of the competitors can recognise and understand, because the starts are fairly important, especially when you've got 17 plus boats all lined up at 100 miles an hour.
There's been never better evidence of the growth in the Offshore Powerboat Championships than the fact that there's been so many teams, so many new teams coming in, so many established teams stepping up to the next class. It's a very heartening sign for the future. The Colonel Racing boys, as always, immaculate in their presentation and tonking along for a fairly consistent result.
Yes, running for their second year in Class 3 4-litre. They were 6-litre competitors a while ago. Problems for Global Racing. Speaking of 6-litre, these are the ex-6-litre champions, Lee Travascus and Mark Gilbert, in their first outing in Class 2 in the ex-Tony Lowe boat. And unfortunately, they've got dramas. You can see one of the engine cowl is off. I think it's the middle engine on the back of the boat, so I would just take a guess that one of their engines is gone.
And that's not a good result at all, as we see Shifty. A stark contrast for them. They are absolutely flying along. It's a great-looking little boat here. It's a weapon, and he's looking to wrap up a championship this year. It's very early days. There's plenty of racing still to come.
Well, these guys dominated Class 3 4-litre last year in their first time out with this new boat. And the two Pauls, Paul Folds and Paul Gibbs, doing a sensational job in the Shifty Offshore Racing. One of the nicest looking boats you'll find anywhere in the field. It's only a little boat compared to some of the others, but very, very quick.
Great little boat, no doubt about it. As you said, distinctively painted, always stands out. Tends to dance on the outboards a little bit. Tends to get the nose up in the air. Nothing to worry about for them, though. They only have to run 7 laps here today. There's different lengths of races for the different classes. Now, the leader of the Class 3 class, when they basically finish those 7 laps, the next lap is a finish for everybody. Paul Gibbs is going to give us a bit of a lowdown on how trim works. It's an interesting part of offshore racing and a very important part as well. Ross Tanner is with him now.
Well, one of the most important pieces of equipment on an offshore race boat is the trim. Paul, tell us about that.
All the outboard boats work the same. You can trim the motor in and out. It hinges off a front point here on the motor. It's got a big hydraulic ram in its tummy, and if you trim the motor out, it lifts the front of the boat up and helps you go faster. But when it's a bit rough, you've got to trim the motor back in and tuck it in, which keeps the nose down and stops it flying so high. So it's very important, and it's important to keep both motors the same. Otherwise, one side's trying to fight the other, and it doesn't work very well. It's not very exciting at all.
And so we're about 3/4 of the way through this race, the opening round here at Corio Bay. As we take a look at the Revitec boys, immaculately turned out boat. Newcomers to the game. You can just see there that Boydie looking back a little bit then, holding onto his head. It's pretty windy. These guys in the open cockpit, it's always going to be pretty gusty.
Yeah, he was having a little bit of a look round at the back of the boat. Maybe there's some concern here because it's not often. I mean, yeah, he seems to be looking a little bit more than he should be towards the back bottom of that boat. So possibly they've got a problem.
As opposed to Andrew Rudd, who's just ploughing on. He doesn't seem to be too concerned about it at all. But now the visor up, that's a bad sign. Whether or not maybe he can hear a different engine note or something. Man, look at Shifty, just unstoppable. This is a great little boat here, running down the ex-Rumbler boat now.
Well, what's impressive about that is it is running down a Class 2 boat, and it's Class 3 4-litre. Here's the new boat, MB Racing by Bell and Jellick. Jellick used to compete in Colonel Racing a number of years ago. This boat, I believe, out of New Zealand and doing a sensational job, also running in Class 3 4-litre. And it's a tough-looking boat.
Yeah, very well sign written too. The Tambourine Mountain Distillery entry. Very neatly turned out indeed. It's just rocketing along, doing the job very nicely indeed.
Yes, Michael Beale and Steve Jellick in this beautifully looking boat. Looks tough, looks a bit like a tank actually.
Got to love the fact it's got the Tambourine Mountain Distillery on the side of it. Manufacturers of fine liqueurs, vodkas, spirits and schnapps. Now that is a good team to have around you come the end of race day.
That's for sure.
It's cut through the water very nicely. It's perhaps an indication of the growth of this series when you're starting to get New Zealand competitors involved as well. I like the way the sort of fins run off the back. It's very aerodynamic in its shape with Steve Jellick. No stranger to this series. We take a look at True Metal, Horton and Smith. Very different in the shape of things. Got the big champion decal on the back there as well. I like the way the whole front of the boat kind of wraps around there.
Darren Horton and Lindsay Smith in this boat, like Smorgon Steel, is an aluminium boat, so it sounds like a bit of a 44-gallon drum as it's belting along the water, but they're very tough and they're very strong, and I believe a little bit more cost efficient in their construction. Now, what is different about this boat to the others running in Class 3 4-litre is most of the other boats have two 2-litre engines. This has one V8 4-litre engine on the back of it.
So it sounds better.
It sounds pretty tough, and it goes very, very well. These guys started to find their form towards the end of the season in 2003 in the Club Marine Championship, and would really like to start the season well, and currently running a little bit further back than what they'd like in 4th in class.
Such a great day for racing. Have a look at these conditions. You can't say hardly a cloud in the sky, but the water is just very smooth. It's Corio Bay, a beautiful little spot. Now, here are the guys from Revitec. They've continued on, but you can see there that Boyd is very concerned about something in the motor department. Rudd is still focused on the job at hand, that is heading forward, but just wonder whether there's a lingering problem, whether it might be just something that is hardly a concern, they just keep on running. Well, hang on. Now they look a whole lot more concerned. In fact, for a second there, I thought they might fail. So there's definitely a problem here.
Yeah, well, that was very quick movement from Rudd as well. It was obviously Boyd who was paying most of the attention to the back of the boat, but all of a sudden, Rudd's decided, hey, he needs to have a look. Mind you, have a look how fast they're still going. I mean, he's driving that boat, and they're still ripping along at some decent speed, but they're reaching for the throttles. I think they're throttling this back and starting to slow up. I think whatever the issue is with the boat is enough to see them possibly have to cancel from this race.
Well, they're hardly Robinson Crusoe today. There's been a couple of lingering motor problems for different teams, and let's face it, it's the first round, and a lot of these teams debuting new machinery. Here is the splits fiberglass entry of Damien Polisi and Stuart Adam, the ex-Rumbler boat, closing in now, I think, on the Colonel, just there. This thing is cutting through the water beautifully. That's Maritimo.
This boat now starting to get a little bit long in the tooth as far as World Championships are concerned, but that doesn't really concern the Maritimo offshore team this year because they will not be returning to Europe to compete in the World Championship for 2004. They're electing to stay home. Bill's going to concentrate a little bit more on building his line of pleasure cruisers under the Maritimo badge.
Now, I'm told there's plenty of widespread interest in the fact that he's doing that. A lot of people lining up. Heard rumours of a year to 18-month waiting list already, so the man's respect is obviously huge. Better tack left or right belly shoon, Muddy McGrath. There's a massive big tanker or container ship sitting in your path. It wouldn't take long to eat up the real estate between that and this immaculate machine.
this is a bit of a learning curve for not so much Peter McGrath, but more for Bill Barry-Cotter, who's doing the throttles, because they are used to running fairly peaky, high-revving Lamborghinis in Europe. Now, when they come back to the diesels, I think their maximum RPM is around 3,000 compared to 9.5. So Bill's going to have to alter the way he controls the throttles. They're fairly temperamental to lack of boost if you come off boost, or if you mess up the corners and get the engine RPM down a little bit. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve for Bill as well, whereas Peter Money McGrath, obviously the way the boat handles in the water would be fairly similar to the way they campaign the boat in Europe.
Have a look how smooth this water is. It's just great conditions for boat racing. Okay, you're sitting behind someone's rooster tail, it's going to be a little bit choppy, but oh, this is bad. Low back, we're on the mobile, so problems here. Is on the 3, trying to dial up some help. Hello, I'm looking for a mechanic that floats. While he dials up some help, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back at the end of this with the resumption of play in these awesome Club Marine Australian offshore powerboats. Welcome back. You're watching round 1 of the 2004 Club Marine Australian Offshore Powerboat Series, and it's business as usual for this man here at Corio Bay, Geelong, Victoria. It's the Maritimo offshore team of Bill Barry-Cotter and the Money McGrath. They are currently doing the biz, as it were. In second spot, it's a great shot of the chopper then, just tilted right over the top as these guys thunder underneath. Second place at the moment, Lowe and Isherwood in the new boat they purchased from Europe. The Smorgon still entry in second, and back in third, it's the Acme boys, who won't be happy at all with the way things are panning out for them. But look at Bill Barry-Cotter and Muddy, they are zooming.
Look at the speed difference between a Class 1 and a Class 2 boat. The boat in the distance is the Splitsma fiberglass entry, and it is just getting absolutely hosed. This is an amazing performance, though, from Smorgon Steel. Tony Lowe and Simon Isherwood, they would be over the moon. They may be running a lap down in second place, but these guys, just to be competing in the front end of this field is just incredible, considering the boat only went in the water this morning. And as we know, these things are run at very, very high RPM under a lot of stress, and often finishing is one of the big concerns, especially in these conditions, and these guys are doing an incredible job.
Well, there's only one thing worse than having to spend a lot of money, and that's to get that old post-purchase dissonance where you think, why did I just buy this thing? At least they're getting some performance out of it. It doesn't seem as fast as it was earlier in the event, where it was really taking it to Maritimo, but you know, teething problems, only early days, all that good stuff. This is their first really serious research and development situation as they go past that container ship again, that tanker. That's amazing that they all get that close.
Well, if you consider they're running 130 miles an hour, they've got, you know, a little bit of performance still left in that boat, and should be running around the 150 mark. Acme Racing, these guys have had a little bit of dramas with their brand new boat. I'm sure that they would have liked to have gone a little bit better than what they have. It seems to me the cockpit, the single cockpit on the centre of this boat is a little bit narrower than the boat that they campaigned last year. And this boat really has the potential to certainly take it up to Maritimo for the rest of the season. I think it did only one race in Europe. It's relatively brand new, and the engines in this thing should take it to Maritimo offshore. But unfortunately, here in round 1, they seem to be struggling a little bit.
Well, what's interesting about this team is that they were in looking for a new boat for 2004. They tell me they actually had their eye on the boat that Bill Barry-Cotter purchased after they had that horrendous crash in the World Championship. So that one was snaffled from them. As we take a look now at Chris Roche, that is a cool-looking boat, the CRS Investments entry, tonguing along and looking at this stage like an inevitable victory in Class 2. That would put a huge smile on Roche's face. He's made a few changes to this boat, not just the cosmetic changes and the colour scheme, that's for sure. Chris Roche, we caught up with him before the start of this race and asked him what has he done between last year and this year, the 2004's results.
Yeah, we've lost about 200 kilos out of the boat by taking the old canopy off. We were lucky enough to use a mould from Steve Searle and Bill Barry-Cotter and put a Class 1 canopy on. The boat's now much safer. We've also got an escape hatch in the floor, which we didn't have before. So it's obviously safer if we do go over. We have visibility, which we didn't have before. The boat's just much, much better to see out of. We also did some modifications to the front of the boat and lost a wing, and the boat's sitting much better. So we're hoping it'll do well.
Your biggest opposition this year in Class 2, where do you think that's going to come from?
Possibly the Smorgon Steel, the old Smorgon Steel boat. Mark Gilbert's in it. He's got plenty of experience with Lee. The boat's a proven boat, so maybe it.
Yeah, she looks like a very happy camper. Here is Piranha, the Brown boys, Rory and Murray Brown in Piranha, cutting through the water very nicely. It's a fairly appropriate name, actually. I think it looks like it should have a big set of teeth on the front. It's really rocketing through the water here. These guys are having a pretty solid run in what is a very competitive class this year.
Yeah, they're doing a good job.
National Aims?
Yeah, actually running third in class at the moment, ahead of Eye of the Tiger.
Have a look how casual they are. Just hanging up the side there, a bit of a wave for the chopper as well. Good stuff, Brown Racing. Well, Shifty has done an excellent job today. Will complete the 7 laps and take the class win in the Class 3 4-litre competition. That is very well done indeed. And that basically brings us to a conclusion with all the other classes now. They now race to the finish line. And Gibbs and Folds, they're going to be very happy with today's job. It's been a very rewarding time for them out in the water.
And of course, what that will mean is that Maritimo Offshore will get the win in class the next time they cross the start-finishing line, which the flag waver on the Cruise Pro Group start boat will be waiting very anxiously for that big white machine to come around very shortly.
Yeah, third place, doing a very nice job in Class 3 4-litre will be Michael Beale and Steve Jellick, if they can hold on the MB Racing entry. And there's the boat you speak of, the QE2 rocket ship, really. The magnificent Maritimo Offshore entry, cruising towards Victory Lane. It's been a walk in the park for these guys today, Dave.
I don't expect it to be that way for the rest of the season, though. Congratulations to Bill Barry-Cotter and Peter Muddy McGrath doing a sensational job to take the win in Class 1.
Tony Lowe's brand new boat, first time in the water here today, was out there, finished in 2nd position, so you could have a little bit of opposition coming up next weekend.
Exactly. We had a sort of, I don't know, 2 or 3 laps very close with him, and he sort of chopped us a bit short on a buoy there, and we thought, oh, we're going to have aluminium all over us in a minute, but turned out well, and no, he ran very well today, and I think he'll get better as the season goes on.
Second in Class 1, Tony Lowe and Simon Isherwood. What a result!
For us to finish, I thought was a miracle. I'd have said that, but finish in 2nd place is just something. It's very hard to explain how excited we are about this. Inwardly, I'm laughing, I've got to tell you.
Concerns for the defending champs in Class 1, Acme Racing Searle Brothers entry. They got trouble with the motor. They limped home in 3rd place and are still reasonably happy with the boat's performance.
We're pretty happy with the performance. We were running 140 mile an hour down the straight at about 6,800 RPM, so there's no issue about the speed. It's just that we've got a bit of a handling issue that we've got to get used to, and we're having trouble with the power steering today. We've got a problem with the steering.
The casualty rate was high in Class 2, but this team, Victory Marine Racing, the CRS Investments boat of Chris Roche, powered on to get an excellent win in Class 2. They'll be stoked with that. Not so good for the Revatech boys. They were actually taking on water. That's a major problem in offshore powerboat racing, let me tell you.
We're going real well there, and then looked around, the boat was filling up water, and one of the pickups come up through the hole that picked up water for the engine, and it blew off one of the anodized aluminium fittings and started filling the boat up with water, so we thought we better pull out before the boat sinks.
Yeah, when we were taking on so much water, we were dropping off a bit of speed, and you know, it was just one of those things, sink the boat or pull out, so obviously we pulled out.
Dramas for global racing in Class 2, all sorts of mechanical gremlins. Let's ask Mark Gilbert what has happened here.
What's happened is the grub screws come out of the gearbox and drain the gearbox of all its oil, and all the gears have mashed together and locked the gearbox up and snapped the drive shaft up in the engine. So we tried to have a go again, ran on 2 engines, but started to get the gremlins in the outside engine, so we just shut it down and brought it home.
Getting the win in Class 3 was Shifty, an excellent result for Paul Folds and Paul Gibbs. Colonel Racing crossing the line for 2nd and rounding out the top 3. MB Racing, good job for them.
We were first to finish the race out of everybody, but we have to do 7 laps and the biggest class do 11. But we finished our 7 when they were on lap 9, so that starts everybody finishing straight away. It's like a Grand Prix finish, they call it. Doesn't happen very often for us, but only when it's maybe a really calm day.
Wrong prop selection today. We should have gone slightly bigger, but congratulations to Paul anyway, Paul 1 and Paul 2 for taking the win.
We do have an engine problem at the moment, but we'll sort that out, and hopefully we will have a little bit more speed for the next round, next weekend.
The much publicised battle between Thicon and Slick ends up with Thicon getting the win. Anthony Defina's going to be very happy with that. Craig Purton and Peter Allen coming home in second.
Done a lot of testing over the summer. We built a few things after last year's first year, which we had a few iron out a few problems, but seems to be looking good now, and we've got good boat speed and everything felt good today, and we're happy with it.
And so your points in Class 1 see Bill Barry Cotter and Peter Money McGrath leading with 475 over Low and Issue with 375 and the Searle Boys with 300. Class 2 sees Victor Marine Racing leading over the Splits Fiberglass team. We then go back to Class 3, Shifty leading Colonel and MB Racing. National A Class points sees Defina and Thomas leading Purton and Allen with Piranha, Brown and Brown, the Brown Boys, back in third place. The next round of the Club Marine Australian Offshore Powerboat Championships is at Melbourne. We look forward to seeing you for that one next time. Three behind the Raja Allen Craven as we see himself. Look at Peter Allen, he's got it in the 2003. Oh! Class 3 leaders. Oh! To the moment. I've just got